What's going on, guys? It's Mdog5 and welcome back to another video. Now today we are going to take a deeper look at the enemies and the combat that was shown in the most recent Tears of the Kingdom trailer, and we're going to speculate how exactly the enemies will be implemented in Tears of the Kingdom. We'll try to predict their behavior, their intelligence, their movesets, and their weaponry, stuff like that. With that being said, you're watching a 4K 60 FPS rendition of the trailer, and I've also edited some of the clips' coloration so that we can see specific details within those specific clips based on the coloration of that specific clip, if that makes sense. But without any further ado, let's get right into it. In one of the very first shots of the trailer, we see these flying creatures. They seem to be a sort of mutation between toads and bats. They could very well be Breath of the Wild's rendition of Kargaroks, which were flying enemies seen in both Twilight Princess and The Wind Waker. But again, their appearance is more mutated toad-like, and Kargaroks, on the other hand, are more bird/vulture-like. Now, the first parallel that we immediately draw upon seeing these creatures is that it looks scarily similar to the other flying creature that we saw in the first Tears of the Kingdom reveal trailer. Now, due to the different flight patterns, I was skeptical to assert that they were the same enemy, but upon closer inspection, they seem about the same size. They have the same wing properties, tail properties. I do think that they're the same enemies, but then of course that leads us with the fact that these two creatures shown in these two different trailers have different flight patterns. In our newest trailer, we see that they're sort of flapping their wings and transitioning into a soar, surveilling the land below them. But in the last trailer that we got, they were flapping their wings like a bird, moving from one place to another, not really surveilling, but traveling. And it seemed to have been traveling before Link activated the ability to reverse the rock while going upwards. So we could assert that it was fluttering its wings irrespective of Link's actions. Of course, taking away the notion that the change of flight was due to the creature being agitated by Link. Maybe this is a different alteration of the Kargarok-like enemies, which would in turn behave in a different manner, indicated by how they flap their wings. We see this enemy again a little further into the trailer carrying a bokoblin. This takes place near Typhla ruins, which no longer has a dark fog, meaning it might be a point of interest. But anyways, this is another strong parallel to Kargaroks, as they were able to do the exact same thing to moblins in The Wind Waker. This might be a core function of this Kargarok-like enemy, as in the last shot we did see them near bokoblins, which was just over the Wasteland Tower. Given the fact that they have this mutualistic relationship with bokoblins, who are already a very common enemy in the game, leads me to believe that they will be also a very common enemy. Maybe even replacing the annoying ass keys that show up at night. But we don't know all that yet. We then see Link shooting a homing arrow at this Kargarok-like enemy who dies after one hit. Now, I don't know if the arrow is special or if the enemy is just weak as hell, but we'll get into that in a second. If the enemy is that weak, then I think it'll be ideal and encouraged that we shoot the Kargarok while they're up in the sky holding the bokoblins, as that is way too high for bokoblins to be traveling without falling down and not taking damage. Now we can make two final things out of this shot right here. We see the enemy approach Link and sort of flap its wings wildly, which indicates that it will give us, the player, some time before we have to prepare for its attack. This is also the fourth time we see the enemy appear in a weather neutral environment, again pointing towards the idea that they are common enemies and aren't that powerful. The next shot, which holds enemies, obviously takes place in a cave with some sort of mystical particles floating throughout the air. Of course, you may have seen in some videos that other people have pointed out structures such as that glowing thing in the middle of the cave and those wisps to the right. But of course, this video is dedicated to analyzing the enemies. With that being said, we see pools of Malice over the cavernous area, which will not only hinder our movement, but we see that it has rubbed off on the Lizals in this shot. At first I thought that those two Lizals just went skinny dipping in the pools of Malice, but then I realized that all of the enemies in the shot have pools of Malice on their body. Even the hidden Lizals over there. Now, given the fact that there are pools of Malice on the ground in the cave and that all these enemies have blotches of Malice on them, also coupled with the fact that we never see these Malice infested enemies anywhere else in the trailer, leads me to believe that these Malice enemies will be exclusive to cave areas such as this one. Perhaps they'll have different move sets, but the interesting thing about this is that attacking these enemies will damage your weapon in a specific manner. We understand that the Master Sword did get melted off after a fight with Ganondorf. You can see the spots where the Malice will break off the sword when the sword is intact but is infected with the Malice. But if we could take a look at this shot right here, we see that Link is holding what appears to be a one-handed soldier's broadsword, which is also tainted by the Malice. This makes us keen on the fact that the Master Sword is not the only sword that can be affected by the enemy's Malice, and perhaps Link used this sword to fight off Malice-infested enemies like the ones we see in this shot, although it left Link with some serious repercussions. This also leads me to believe that there will be some sort of new weapon durability system, but we'll save that for another video. With that out the way, we see the Bokoblin harvesting a deposit ore out of what seems to be some sort of stone talus. I mean, whether this is an enemy camp on a stone talus or not is unclear, and whether or not the mutualistic relationship between the stone talus and the Bokoblins is derived from the fact that the Bokoblins are harvesting something from their ore is also unknown. Diving a bit deeper, we do see the Bokoblin with a backpack containing a bit of the ore that it's harvesting. We also see in this shot that the Bokoblin also has a similar backpack, although it's holding a slice of meat. With different items being contained in different Bokoblin's backpacks, it led me to believe that there's actually a reason behind their actions, unlike the mining that we see in Goron City, where the Gorons just mine endlessly without actually collecting anything. Just a couple more things. One is that whatever is in their backpack is collectible, and two, if this isn't a stone talus, then it's going to be harder for us to discern whether or not an enemy camp is attached to a stone talus. My guess is that this one isn't because of the torch, meaning that the thing would have had to have stayed still for quite some time, but I mean, the apprehension will still be present. The final thing is that what seems to be in the Bokoblin's hands when he is mining the ore is a different weapon than the one-handed axe that we have seen previously in the trailer and in the last trailer. Given the fact that this is being held by a measly red Bokoblin, leads me to believe that this is a weak weapon but an efficient tool for mining ores. Now in this next shot we see a three-headed dragon guarding the bridge of Lake Hylia. And y'all didn't want to believe me when I told you that there's gonna be a new normal enemy that was stronger than the Lynel, bro. I told you guys. Anyways, this already draws similarities to the Lynel as it guards a particular area while not moving around very much. In this case, not at all. I can't really make out the dragon's coloration, but what we can make out is the fire engulfing all of its heads. Whether it's a powerful enemy like the Lynel or an entire sub-boss like the Talus or the Hinox, this new enemy type will definitely be spread throughout the map generously. Not only that, but it will also have different tiers just like every other enemy in the game. Perhaps there'll be an ice variant or a lightning variant of this enemy. Now there's another theory going around that this is the modern iteration of Gleeok, which was a dragon found in the very first Zelda game. Moving on, a lot of people thought that this shot was an eruption of Death Mountain, but very obviously, to me at least, this is the new animation for the Blood Moon. We see these balls of Malice rain down from the sky underneath the Blood Moon as though they're meteors, and then they dissipate once they hit the ground, allowing the enemies to appear from them. This next shot also offers a lot of detail. For one, we see that the horns on top of the Bokoblin's heads have been updated since the 2021 trailer. Two, we finally see the crest on top of the Moblin's head, which was very hard to make out in the previous 2021 trailer. We see that the blue Lizalfos shares the exact same updated Dao sword-like horn model as the green Lizalfos. I mean, to be fair, it does appear to be a bit more clean and a bit longer than the green Lizalfos' horn, but if there is no difference, then that would be an anomaly given what we've seen in all of the Tears of the Kingdom trailers. We also see Tears of the Kingdom's iteration of the Re-Dead. This is a classic Zelda enemy known for its notoriously high-pitched scream and damaging Link while holding him still. We can assume that this is going to be a common enemy as we do see it appear within the Blood Moon animation. Looking towards the back there, we see that the blue Bokoblins have a forked horn, similar to the forked Lizal spear. More on that later. And finally, we see a brand new enemy which has been officially named the Boss Bokoblin. Now, some people say that this next shot has an enemy within the explosion. Some say it's a Lionel. Others said that it was Aster. But what we can clearly tell is that this is the destruction of some sort of enemy with light energy, similar to the power that Zelda possesses. We know that this kind of energy is the only energy that can cleanse Malice, so this is definitely the destruction of a prominent Malice-filled enemy. Now, this shot is one of the most intriguing, and of course, it's also one of the most difficult to discern. This is very clearly a Molduga traveling in sand. Okay. So, after doing some investigative work in Breath of the Wild, I've confirmed that this location is north of Osira Plains and is heading towards the Tobab grassland. Now, I know that the geography has changed from Tears of the Kingdom to Breath of the Wild, but if this is the case, then this Molduga isn't actually traveling in sand and is actually traveling in grass. Regardless of what it's swimming in, it does not make sense for it to be there based on Breath of the Wild's geography. The path from the desert to those plains are completely blocked off by mountain and snow. We can assume that given the fact that the Molduga's head is above whatever it's swimming in, I mean, it's probably no longer confined to just the sand. And, I mean, just take a look at this shot as I've enhanced it. I count a tentative 9 of those things. Is this just a cutscene, or are we gonna be fighting 9 Moldugas at once and outside of the sand? That's crazy. Now, in this shot, we see Link standing on some sort of Sheikah platform before 6 Guardian Arms pop out, one of which holds what seems to be some sort of wire. The first thing that I tried to figure out upon looking at this shot was where Link was exactly, and based on the coloration and the decoration of the room he's in, I think this is an extension of the Yiga clan hideout. I mean, they're known for their deception, and Link definitely looks surprised. Oh shit! Oh shit! But then I had my doubts. The logo on the top right behind Link is a Sheikah logo and not a Yiga clan logo. Whoever this is seems to be just outside and is raised high above the ground. I guess we'll have to wait and see for this one. The very next shot shows us the dynamic between the boss Bokoblins and the normal Bokoblins. Now, in this shot, we see that the boss Bokoblin is blue instead of red, an entire tier above the one that we saw in the last shot, meaning there will probably be black, silver, and gold boss Bokoblins along with Bokoblins. Now, based on this picture, we know that the boss Bokoblins can hold different weapons and they can direct different tiers of Bokoblins, meaning one tier of boss Bokoblin isn't mutually exclusive to one tier of Bokoblin. Just like all the other tiers of enemies in this game, they have different horns than one another. The higher the tier, the more menacing the horn. Speaking of horns, we know that the boss Bokoblins will always be equipped with one and would be ready to direct the Bokoblins around it. Now, Bokoblins are small enemies and used to get bullied by Moblins, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a boss Moblin or a boss Lizalfos or anything of that sort. This also takes place during a blood moon, so I'm not entirely sure if those splashes of Malice mean anything. Now, the next shot shows Link putting his Crocs in sports mode and running away from this Hinox, which is seemingly unchanged. It's worthy to note that this shot takes place in a narrow cave, which I'd assume would be preferential for the Hinox as it loves to sleep. It wouldn't really surprise me at all if all the Hinoxes moved to the caves, and some were even infected with Malice, as we saw in Age of Calamity. Besides the horn, the only thing that's worth noting about the Hinox's new appearance is that glowing rock that it's wearing, as opposed to a necklace full of weapons. The next shot, we see Link being attacked by 3 Moblins. If we zoom into the blue one, we can see that it used its new horns to jab itself into the ground, presumably where Link was standing. This suggests a brand new kind of attack out of the enemies. And I mean, all the enemies have new horns, so what if Nintendo intends to put them to good use? I mean, we come up with these new horn designs that are mutually exclusive to every tier of enemy. Perhaps a higher tier of enemy will use its more dangerous horn more wisely. If we take a look at the back of the shot there, we see a bigger enemy camp with some more verticality, probably built to house the larger Moblins. And Link now also has a diagonal walking defense position, as we see in this next shot here. We see Link fighting a golem-like statue compartmentalized with boxes that are held together by the green energy. Now this is similar to the enemy that we saw in the 2021 reveal trailer, meaning that these enemies are going to be exclusive to the Sky Islands. In this next shot, we see Link shield surfing on this rail, which is attached to what seems to be Death Mountain. We see an archer moblin posted up on a stand, which is something that's new, and then we also see two blue bokoblins, each holding a Malice stained soldier's broadsword. Now there's two more notable things in this shot, one of which is that ore that's sitting in the corner. There are also mine carts with the pickaxe logos written on them, meaning that shield surfing on the rails isn't the only way to traverse the rails. A lot of people speculated that the bokoblins were mining that ore over there. However, there's nothing to indicate that, since they aren't actually mining it and they also aren't using the correct tools to be mining, as we saw with the bokoblins from the earlier shot. And then of course we see two wheels, which we know that we can use to craft our own vehicles. And finally we see Link attacking a luminous stone talus with a new zonai cannon. The luminous stone talus has remained unchanged since the first game. However, this does confirm that we will still have our classic Breath of the Wild enemies in Tears of the Kingdom to some degree. People made note of this luminous structure as it stood behind the stone talus, and I personally think that it may be the source of the luminous stone's power. Maybe all the stone taluses will remain stronger as long as that structure remains intact, and maybe the normal stone taluses are now exclusive to caves, as it would be a better, more appropriate environment, aesthetically speaking at least. And now, one bonus clip before we leave. We see a brand new dragon up in the sky, the same one that was briefly spotted in the last trailer. It's not Dinrel, Nadra, or Farash, and so it leads me to believe that wherever this screenshot was taken will be a place of importance or significance in Tears of the Kingdom. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments down below. And guys, we are officially 3 months away from Tears of the Kingdom. Just 3 months. You guys have lived 3 months before? I mean, it is really not that long. But above all, hopefully you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.